Sunrisers played Rajasthan, and we saw Sunrisers try something where it felt like they needed to do something to that bowling attack because they were just getting flayed all over the park. And they brought in two debutants in the same game. Two debutants ended up opening the bowling as well and completely ripped the heart out of Rajasthan Royals. I believe they were 9 for 5. I remember you and I WhatsApping, and we were like, what the heck is going on? An interesting talking point of this game was Krunal Pandya's bouncers and his cornrows.
Look, to each their own. I'm talking about the cornrows, but the bouncers I love. I love the bouncers. You know, as a batsman, put your helmet on if you don't have it on, right? And hey, you can see he does not discriminate for the bouncers because he was doing that to his brother as well. And, if we do glance at Punjab's batting today, Shreyas Iyer, third consecutive 50 this IPL. Truly a real captain's knock. I think last pod you mentioned a real distinct factor of Shreyas Iyer's batting is the pace of his innings. We saw him this match as well. He got a few early boundaries, but then kind of settled the ship there in the middle. And that's what you really needed. That partnership really took the game away from them.
Welcome back to the Inbetween Overs podcast. We're your host of Today's Play. I'm Taran.
And I'm Ishaan.
Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Week number 3 of IPL 2026 has come to an end. It's been an even greater week than week 2 and week 1. The table's kind of getting a little more refined. People are moving, but some teams have definitely cemented their spot at the top. A lot of interesting performances, a lot of different storylines developing as well. Taran, what an explosive week of T20.
Explosive week, and we're also seeing, as you said, the cream rising to the top. Looking at the table right now, Punjab Kings sitting pretty at the top. They're the only team so far that hasn't lost, and they're the only team that doesn't look like losing. Their bowling's coming together. Their batting's been in full flow. I know you have a really good question about them, which we'll get to later on in the pod with regards to their squad. And then right behind them, RCB, Rajasthan Royals and Sunrisers. Surprisingly, Sunrisers. It feels like one of those, for me, one of those tournaments or one of those seasons where everybody is going to be fighting for number 4. It feels like the top 3 are going to be at the top, and then number 4 is anybody's game. To see Sunrisers there is actually a shock to me. It's not like they've been playing great, but it shows how open the league is once you go through the top 3.
No, I totally agree with that. At least, especially from my perspective, the top two being, the both finalists from last year, continuing their great form. I do believe that, yeah, they're, cream at the top, and they've been looking, both teams, extremely impressive. Albeit, I think, at the beginning of the season, some would say that those teams comparatively were maybe not as good as they were last year, right? So good to see that. And then, yeah, I think number 4, we do see obviously Sunrisers Hyderabad. We know obviously the style of play that they're famous for and how poorly they performed last year. But no, it is very interesting to see them 4. And yeah, it is going to be a dogfight. I think it definitely is. You got Delhi there as well. You got a few other teams in there, but no, it definitely seems like it will definitely be an interesting weeks coming forward.
Even looking at the bottom, Mumbai Indians and KKR aren't looking that hot either. KKR looks like they should wrap up the season. We got plenty to talk about with them later on, but even they're still in with a shot. The KKR with 2 or 3 wins, they could easily be number 4.
Yeah, and like we know how, even though I would say this tournament is long, it's a pretty quick tournament because you kind of see teams playing multiple times a week. And so you'll definitely see, I think, the table move as we go forward.
Yeah. So looking at the week that went by, lots of fantastic performances over the week. Some good games as well, close games. Some great individual performances by batters, starting with a new gem unearthed last week. LSG versus KKR on April 9th was all about the man Mukul Chaudhary. Made a name for himself. LSG looked like they were down and out in that game, and it looked like finally KKR would get some points on the board, only to be stopped by Mukul Chaudhary, who played a phenomenal innings. He scored a 50, took the game right down to the wire, and won it off the last ball.
Yeah, extraordinary performance there. And you kind of needed that performance for the win because, as you mentioned, LSG had their backs against the wall. And, I think right after this win, obviously a great performance by Mukul Chaudhary, as you mentioned. A video had come out where I think in one of those early promotion videos of LSG, Justin Langer actually said on camera that he is going to make Chaudhary international ready. So interesting shout out from Justin Langer, obviously before this performance, but this goes to show that maybe he had a little hand in his performance.
Are we sure that video was not shot after the game? If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. We know how Lucknow Super Giants is, their PR. Oh, that's actually such a great point to ride.
Another special shout out in that game, Ayush Badoni played a good innings. It's good to see him at number 4 in this lineup. I don't know if that's depriving other people in the lineup, talking about Nicholas Pooran, who's coming in at 5. I feel that he should be at 4 and Badoni's at 5 or 6, but it seems like they want to have Badoni giving him some game time with the bat, and he performed in that game, made a crucial 50 that kept LSG in the hunt.
Yeah, exactly. I think they want to invest in Badoni as well. He's a younger player. Maybe, obviously looking to see how we can grow with the franchise. This is obviously being a newer franchise as well. And I do think they spent some good coin on him as well in the auction. I think it's definitely that perhaps a long-term investment in Badoni. You kind of, as you mentioned, you kind of do need those domestic players, those internet Indian players in your squad. But yeah, no, it's interesting. But there is also some merit into that. Nicholas Pooran has not been having the best season. So whether that's his form or whether that's maybe not in the right batting position, I think Nicholas Pooran and LSG got to figure that out soon.
Next day was RCB and Rajasthan Royals, and we saw Baby Vaibhav Suryavanshi few days ago destroyed Bumrah and then destroyed Hazelwood, who came back, his first game back, and just took him out. Ended up scoring, I believe, 70 odd off 30 balls and took the game completely away from RCB right at the start. 78 from 26, striking at 300 on the dot. And then Dhruv Jurel chipped in with an 81, a casual strike rate of 188. And Rajasthan won quite easily in the end.
No, no, exactly. I think it's a typical case of obviously, you had the openers, sorry, especially Suryavanshi, go at it fourth, fifth gear. And then after that, Jarrell just had to go on cruise control, which is, I think, the template Rajasthan is looking to follow. Go ham power play, then get like a decent below 200 strike rate going forward and sort of take the game away. We kind of saw that there. And to your point, from basically pulling Bumrah to now pulling Hazelwood, it's absolutely mind boggling. I think now you'll obviously, he will be that batsman where I hate drawing this comparison, but it's kind of reminiscent of, okay, Sachin's batting, let's watch. Or hey, Kohli's batting, let's watch. Or hey, Dhoni's batting, let's watch. When Suryavanchi's batting, I do want to watch. I do want to see what happens. And it's interesting because this I think this natural following is fairly organic where if he's batting and I'm like, okay, it's opening spell, it's Archer or it's Bumrah or it's whoever, you're gonna have like, a classic matchup. So far he's been getting the better half of it. So I think it's good for the game and let's see how long it takes for him to break into the Indian squad.
That's such a great shout because I've been feeling like that every time he comes out to bat as well. And I think a lot of people are feeling that. Also, his technique with the way that he gets ready for the ball is iconic in the sense that it's so unique. The way he sets up to hit the ball, and I actually it actually looks really good the way he does it. And it actually shows where he's getting his power from. And shout out to Akash Chopra, who did a great breakdown on his backlift, where if you watch the way he lifts his bat up, he gets a lot more whippage or whiplash through the bat because of the way that he brings it up and around and down, which is very unique. And a lot of other batters don't do it like that. And I tried shadow batting that to see how it felt like. And I noticed it because, not to get too technical here, but when you hold a bat and you hold it vertically, the bat gets lighter. And so when you hold it here, you let gravity and physics help you. And so the bat is light. And then rather than when you're holding it at an angle, which most batters do, you can just look at Virat Kohli, right? When his back lift before he's facing up to the ball, it's at an angle. The classic, Sachin, all classic batters, right? When you do that, there's actually more weight on you. You actually have to hold it. Whereas when you hold it vertical, and now I understand why people like Francois, Faf du Plessis, Shivnaran Chanderbal have those high backlifts because they want to keep the bat light as they face up. At least that's what it
No,
looks like.
hey, no, that's very fair. I didn't notice that myself, but no, that's a great shout. You do see that flicky action from him, that little whip is the perfect example is that whip. It kind of has that whip motion. So, no, that's a great show. And it does seem like, he's able to just to hit the ball and like just get it out of the park. And it's absolutely crazy. He's able to do that against players like Archer in the nets, Bumrah in a game, or whether it's Hazelwood in a game.
Speaking of openers, there was an opener that was struggling for form at the start of the IPL. Looks like he found some. Sanju Samson hit 100 over the weekend, where when Chennai faced Delhi, and he was able to put up a solid score, help Chennai put up a solid score with his century. Got off to a great start, looked really good in that innings, and Ayush Matre also played a good supporting role to help CSK get to 212.
Yeah, I think it was really nice to see, as you mentioned, Sanju getting that 100, especially in Chennai. Iconic fan base, iconic, sort of atmosphere. So I think, having that environment in this, like for the team, for the IPL was super important because obviously with Dhoni not being in the squad right now, you kind of missed out in the IPL action, that Chennai fan craze and like how they really like what they really bring to the match. It was nice to see that, Sanju Samson helped revive that because obviously look at last year, look at, beginning of this year as well. Chennai had been looking a little sluggish or whatnot. So love to see, Sanju Samson coming in and getting that century and then yeah, helping them cross the line. Delhi was looking good. We talked about how strong Delhi was. So it definitely took a strong Chennai effort to beat Delhi.
A talking point in that game was the retirement of Ayush Matre, who played a great supporting role, but it looked like he was struggling towards the back end to get some momentum and score some quick runs. And Chennai retired him, brought in Shivam Dubey, who made a quick cameo and got Chennai above that 200 target. Is this something we're going to see more of in the IPL? We've seen it in other leagues. I don't remember seeing it that often in the IPL. I think this is one of the first ones. And it feels like we may see more of this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we will see more of this, and I don't see any issues with that at all. If you should be able to retire out, we see that in like other formats of the game as well. This one being obviously tactically, and it makes sense. You're trying to get the most runs per ball. So rather than trying to get yourself out or do anything like that, a team should have the ability to bring a player out and obviously bring the next batter in if they want. And yeah, they worked well for tonight. They won by 23 runs and that little cameo from Shivam Dubey was super important for that.
What if that player is Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma? Are you still taking him out?
Well, that's the thing, right? I definitely think it adds an element of additional thinking into the game, right? Like, and I think you kind of should have that. The fans should be thinking about that. Players should be thinking about that. It adds another variable, which I think just enhances the game just a tad little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a manager or a coach at that point, taking out some of the superstars of the game. I think, and there was a game where recently one of the games in this past week where Kohli was kind of sluggish in his strike rate, and it got me thinking about, hey, like if this was the end of the innings, towards the end of the innings, I wonder if there's even a thought of getting him out.
But here's oh, interesting, interesting. That's a very good shout. Yeah, but again, players need to know, the game has advanced so much that everyone understands. Like even a 200 score is not, sometimes high enough. Every run does matter. But hey, I think it'll be interesting because, and that's a question maybe for you, Tron, or if anyone knows the answer to this, who has the final say? If the management, if the coach wants just say Matre to retire out, but Matre himself does not want to retire out who has a final say? Because at the end of the day, you can't really go in and drying him out. The player has to walk himself out.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good segue into the game of the weekend, which was the RCB Mumbai game, the derby or the rivalry that it has become now. So we talked a little bit about Virat Kohli's innings. Well, RCB were able to put up 240 in that game, and Rajat Patidar looks really good right now in his form. He's almost like Tim Davidish in his ability to hit the ball right now. And he even promoted himself in that game, came in number 3 and scored a 20 ball 50, which made up for the strike rate of Virat Kohli. So it was that game where Virat Kohli was a little bit on the slow side. He's striking only at 130, but Rajat Patidar is striking at 265. Combine those two, that's 300 strike rate.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And Rajat Patidar had to sort of make up for that sluggish end there by Kohli. But just on Rajat Patidar, we talked about his obviously his history as a substitute player coming in, getting captaincy early on, winning the IPL. I think right now it's safe to say that it's honestly, but it's between Shreyas Iyer and Rajat Patidar for literally like the hottest T20 captain right now in terms of four-man captaincy. They've been doing well. Both obviously made it the finals last year. Both are 1 and 2 right now. There's something that needs to be said about both captains. One, A, performing well with the bat, and two, carrying forward a pretty good team as well. So shout out to both Rajat Patidar and Shreyas Iyer there. But yeah, great to see him bat really well here. 265 strike rate. And again, putting up a 250 score, it just seems like that's maybe not on par, but that's maybe just slightly above par these days, which is just astonishing to say.
An interesting talking point of this game was Krunal Pandya's bouncers and his cornrows.
Look, to each their own. I'm talking about the cornrows, but the bouncers I love. I love the bouncers. As a batsman, put your helmet on if you don't have it on, right? And hey, you can see he does not discriminate for the bouncers because he was doing that to his brother as well. So, it does seem like it was obviously a tactic he has. Spinners have different variations. His, I guess, is a variation on length.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw a spinner bowl bouncers like that was Shahid Afridi. I think he was the OG with the bouncers with the faster ball. He used to bowl seam up as a spinner as one of his change-ups, where he used to click 120, 125, 130 even easy. I even remember him opening the bowling in a test match. Now that I'm talking about it, seam up, seam up. But he was the OG doing that, and nice to see Krunal Pandya bringing that back. I guess it's not as easy as it looks, because I was wondering, and you may wonder, why don't other spinners do it? But it's not that easy, because you got to use a lot of force and shoulder and power to bowl the ball at that speed from that much of a run up. So pretty much no momentum. And so you got to have a certain action, and Krunal Pandya has that, where he has that high arm action that he can really bring the ball down like a fast bowler. Whereas you think about other traditional spinners, you probably are not going to see them do that because they probably don't have the ability to.
No, I don't think they do, and it's also I think it's a risk factor as well. That goes slightly wrong, you can one either bowl a no ball or second and get literally pulled out of the park. So I think you really have to be accurate with that length, especially as a spinner. But yeah, good to see he's bringing that back. And looking at that game very quickly, it did seem like a 240 was a very high score. Mumbai came close, obviously, with cameo from Sherfield Rutherford at the end. Solid runs there. But I think, the game was pretty wrapped up when I would say basically when Tilak Verma got out for three, again, he's looking a little sluggish as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to Mumbai and unpack that further as we cover some of the other games that they played, or the most recent one. The very next day, Sunrisers played Rajasthan, and we saw Sunrisers try something where it felt like they needed to do something to that bowling attack, because they were just getting flayed all over the park. And they brought in two debutants in the same game. Two debutants ended up opening the bowling as well and completely ripped the heart out of Rajasthan Royals. I believe I remember watching that. They were 9 for 5. I remember you and I WhatsApping, and we were like, what the heck is going on? Praful Hinge took 3 wickets in his first over. Uh, playing for the first time in the IPL. And apparently he said that he manifested this.
Hey, look, I guess it worked, right? Incredible, incredible opening bowling, and that was a game there. I think, as we know, in T20 cricket, you get 1 or 2 wickets in the power play, it's pretty uphill for the batting squad, but you get 5 or 4 to 5, in the first couple of overs, it's really, really tough to come up there, especially when you're chasing a score over 200, right? So Sunrisers needed that. Obviously, we didn't obviously mention their weakness being that bowling. Let's not gloss over the fact that they've invested in Unakand and who's the other bowler?
I don't even remember the name. That's how you know.
Was Shami part of this team or no? Am I
No, Shami's on LSG
no?
now.
LSG now. Sorry. But yeah, Onatgad is unfortunately was rested, so I think we may have seen the last of him this season. But look, there are new bowlers, and hey, they got the results they wanted, and I think this is the first time in IPL history where there was 3 wickets in the first over.
Yeah, first time ever. And I think first time two debutants took forfers in the same game as well. I could be wrong on that one, but I don't remember the last time that happened. And even if it does, it doesn't happen too often. Rajasthan Royals, that game, it felt like their lower middle order got exposed. And I remember watching that game, and I think I messaged you about this. I didn't realize that they don't have batting after number 7. And they literally had Jofra Archer come in at 8, who I would say at best is a number 9, 10. And he's going after the bowling. You don't expect him to build something. And then they have 3 number 11s. Tushar Deshpande showed that he could swing the bat a bit. But when you stack that against some of the other teams that have out and out batters at 8 and 9 coming in, not out and out batters, but batters that can last a few overs or give you some runs, crucial runs. I don't think Rajasthan has that. I think they're very dependent on their top order and maybe their middle.
I would say top 3. I'm just saying top 3. I think, maybe if Hitmeyer's playing, you add him in there as well, so it's your top 4. But other than that, Priyam Parag, what's his form been the last season? I know as a captain he's been doing well, but I think he's only been getting single digit scores his last few games. Shocking from him. And then you have I hate saying it, a ex Chennai Ravindra Jadeja, who, could give you, I think what he could give you is what he gave you that match for 45 off 32, strike rate 140. I think that's one of the best case scenarios. So it is what it is, but you're right. I think from a Rajasthan batting perspective, the top 3, if you take them out, you got to really, really focus on who will bring you those runs.
Yeah, and that game they even adjusted their order a bit in the sense that they left out Shimron Hitmeyer. I don't think it was an injury related issue. I think they just left him out and they brought in Luandre Pretorius, who is an opener or a top order bat. He made a name for himself in the SAT 20 leagues in South Africa, and he came in at number 4, got a first baller, and he's batting out of position. So it feels like there's a couple of question marks in that batting lineup, even though they started strong. I think they still have some question marks before they can be considered a true contender. And I honestly thought they were the way they were playing until I saw this game. I'm like, wait, there's way too many question marks here.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's definitely going to be in the mixed pack there in the middle. But yeah, they definitely must either get runs from at least Riyan Parag. You need him to step up, or you've changed around and you bring in Hitmeyer, because we know if Hitmeyer is in form, he can give you runs as well. So definitely some things to look at for Rajasthan. I guess staying on this match very quickly, Abhishek Sharma, obviously, just coming off a World Cup win with Team India, really good then. A little dry of runs this season. Of course, he scored that 70 odd against Punjab in Punjab, which was, obviously his home stadium. So, we can say that it was his home court. But other than that, he's not been looking too good. I don't know, do you think there is concern of his opening spot in the Indian squad?
Yeah, great points on Abhishek. He looks a little rusty again. I know he was rusty during the T20 World Cup. We all remember that. But then the finals sort of saved him, where he scored that innings. And even in this IPL, he's got that one innings to boot, but nothing really to speak for. And the more you watch him bat, the more you feel like he looks like he's trying to get out of that rut.
Yeah.
He just feel and it feels like he only knows that one way to get out of it. I feel he just needs to once again buy some time in the middle, buy some time, play it out a little bit like Sanju did in that century where he hung in there. He just gave himself a shot and then was able to catch up later on, which I think Abhishek is capable of. I hope that he is because right now it just looks like he's trying to go after everything and it's not looking good. He's not putting any sort of scores together or doesn't even look like he's trying to build an innings. He's just looking like he's trying to slog his way out of this.
I totally agree with I think you obviously you Jessica Jaiswal, Suryavanshi in the peripheries. I do think Abhishek Sharma needs to get back in form. Otherwise, we know this game, how fast it moves, how, you know, you, you want to grow younger players as well. He definitely, Abhishek Sharma needs to, worry about who's in his peripheries right now.
What's going on with KKR? I think we talked about them earlier. Should they just wrap up this season and start looking at next season, play around with the squad, find some players that maybe they could look to include in the 11 for next season? Or how do you feel about how they're going about right now?
I think firstly, they should look at whoever made the call on Cameron Green and fire that person. Don't know what that was about. 18 crores? Are you kidding me? Relook at that contract. Why don't you?
As
But yeah, no, I
the
totally agree.
TGC boys said it on their podcast, Scam Green.
Scam Green strikes again. And you could tell also, I think, Cameron Green wants to do well, but I think
He's a great
everyone
player.
wants to do well. But, if you're not performing and you get paid the big bucks to be an all rounder and you're not delivering, the IPL is a cutthroat league. It simply is. You have international players who just don't even make, the 11s. So it is a cutthroat league where you do have to perform. And unfortunately, KKR, ever since Shreyas Iyer left, I know they have a captain as in Rahane. We know he had a few innings here and there, but you got to take a step back. Is he really your T20 captain going forward? Is he really going to get you a T20, IPL trophy? Well, maybe he's there, dare I say, as a temporary captain, but they definitely need to look at how that squad is going to shape up for the next few years, having stopgaps there for this year or next year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they just need to wrap the season up and just focus on the next season, give players a chance, try different batting orders, try different bowling lineups, and see what clicks. Because it's going to be a uphill battle from here. Because they haven't won a game. They're 5 games in. So, they need to win at least 7 games to get a playoff shot. 14 games per team, right? So to win 7 out of 9 is not going to be easy. We've seen it been done before, but there's nothing about this team that screams they're going to win 7 out of 9. So I think they just need to focus on the next season and use this as a practice season, as bad as that sounds.
Well, hey, it is what it is, right? Sometimes you got to cut your losses short and focus on maybe you're promoting it out correctly. Grow your younger players, try different combinations because if you make that decision early on, at least you'll have time to really, experiment.
And not too far behind them is LSG. They seem to blow hot and cold, but more cold than hot. They also are struggling with their batting order, don't really know where to bat players. We talked about Ayush Badoni batting at 5, but that puts Nicholas Pooran at 5. Sorry, Ayush Badoni at 4, putting Nicholas Pooran at 5. We saw Punt open, then we saw Punt coming one down. So some confusion there. There's ownership stuff that is all over the internet. The bowling looks, again, hot and cold. Shami looks good sometimes when there's swing, and when there's no swing, he just looks like a bowling machine.
Yeah, no, I think it's similar to what we talked about were the issues for Sunrisers earlier in the year, right? It's a combination of they have those electric batters. You have Mitch Marsh, you have Mark Rum, you have Punt. Um, Asterisk on Punt because, I still think is his upper limit 130, 140 strike rate? Maybe. Looks good in tests, but doesn't look too good in T20. You do have obviously Badoni and Puran as well there. Do you have the bowling prowess as well? LSG is struggling on that end. And it just seems unbalanced. And then on top of that, you add in the ownership pressures. We've all seen the visuals. We all know the history, between the owners and, former captain KL Rahul, pressure on Rishabh Pant. Obviously, Rishabh Pant coming into the captaincy, not being the greatest captain for Delhi, having that questions, being out of the T20 setup, there's questions on him as well. So I think that entire unit, whether it's ownership, whether it's pressure, whether it's combination, it's just not going well for Lucknow right now.
Finally, we had the game today between Mumbai Indians and Punjab Kings. Punjab Kings, as we started the pod, looking like the cream at the top. They're looking like they're going to hit another final. They're looking like they might just take home the trophy. I know we're still early in the season, but they are one of those teams that don't really have a lot of holes. Today's match, Mumbai Indians, 195 for 6. You could say restricted to 195 for 6, even after a wonderful century by QDK, and then for Rohit Sharma. They might have changed their order a bit, but it worked out. Namandir made a good 50, but you felt that they weren't able to.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Mumbai has a lot of things going wrong with them. It did seem like they were restricted, especially, you did have stability in the middle there with Namandir coming in and, steadying the ship a little bit. I think a lot of the one fans and a lot of the momentum slipped away from them after that insane catch by Shreyas Iyer. You got to give a shout out to him. I think that definitely blew the wind out of them, and it did kind of restrict them because then obviously they were a little sloppy in running. There was a run out as well. But yeah, they definitely look like with QDK there, at least well over 200 at least being restricted under 200 at Wankhede, I think, is below par. So obviously the bowling unit from Mumbai Indians had an uphill battle going into the second innings there.
Yeah, and just to wrap up with the Punjab bowling attack there, Arshdeep found some form, which was mentioned, and then you look at the rest. Even though they didn't take a lot of wickets, but you felt that they all are bowling as a pack. And we've seen a lot of consistency with their bowling attack in the sense that they've used the similar five bowlers and then and over here and there from a person like a Shashank Singh today, or in other games, we've seen Cooper Connolly, I think, bowl over here and there,
Yep, yep,
right?
yep, yep.
Marcus Stoinis as well. So they have a very strong bowling unit, and I always feel, I think it's a saying, right? It's the bowlers that win you the championships. And I feel they have that, which is what is missing from some of the other teams where they may not have five out and out bowlers. Like even the uncapped guy, Vijay Kumar Vaishak, he looks like he's added more to his game with the ball. He has some other variations that he pulled out in some of the games, especially at the death. And so that's been great to see from Punjab.
Yeah, I think you raised a good point there. Their bowling is what's a little bit different. We saw Arshdeep struggle in a lot of the first few games, and their bowling, whether that was Xavier Bartlett, whether that was Marco Jansen, they were stepping up. So I think you mentioned the bowling as a pack is super important, which I guess is probably the biggest distinction between the bowling attack of Punjab and Mumbai. Mumbai is bowling like a pack. You saw obviously the spinners going for heavy runs. You bring in Shashank Singh, he goes for under 10 and over, and you look at your other bowlers, they're all going way below 10. It does make a difference, and it does allow you to restrict the total to less than 200.
Yeah, and then like you said, looking at Mumbai, comparing Mumbai's attack, so Punjab comes in and they got off to a flying start, uh, courtesy their openers Priyansh Arya and Prabhsimran Singh. But you look at that attack, and obviously it's Jasprit Bumrah. He's your guy, but he hasn't been your guy. And throughout this IPL, Bumrah hasn't taken a wicket yet, and we have been taking the mockers on other bowlers and naming them 0 for 40 bowlers. Meanwhile, Bumrah's under the radar been going for exactly that. Hasn't taken a wicket yet. And we're talking about the greatest bowler of all time here. So you're not able to get anything out of your strike bowler. And so you're now looking for wickets from elsewhere, and that is not coming. Deepak Chahar looks like a bowler of his past. Trent Bolt is no longer in the squad now, or in the 11, I should say. He started off, he didn't look that good, which is why he lost his spot probably. Tucker is Charlotte Tucker. He'll give you a wicket here and there, but he also go for a lot of runs. And Hardik Pandya just looks a bit off. He's not fully there with his lengths and his lines. And Gazanfar just doesn't feel fully proven. He bowled well today, but this was the only game that he's bowled well in amongst the ones he's played.
See, what I was obviously thinking after watching Mumbai's bowling attack today, again, just a thought. It's interesting the way that Sky uses the Indian bowlers because I think that actually may suit Jasprit Bumrah a tad a little better this format. And I think if you look at the way he bowls, especially in the lineup now, he's bowling one of the first 2 overs, right? At least for Mumbai. Or sorry, for Mumbai, sorry, one of the first 3 overs for Mumbai. He's not really getting those wickets at the top that allow him to face, a one down batsman or a 2 down batsman early on. Because I think if you're coming one down, you're coming down, and then you're facing Bumrah the next over, you're a little shaky. Whereas now for Mumbai, that's not really happening, where you're not getting those wickets from the top to add additional pressure for Bumrah to work with. And so, I think if you look at the Team India squad, you have Arshdeep getting those wickets up top, which he always does in the first over. Then you have Pandya chipping in as well. And then Bumrah coming in. I think that may work out for Bumrah just a tad better. Whereas now, to your point, he is your number one strike bowler. If you look at the squad there, you could argue that for the T20 India setup, it is that strike bowler up top is Arshdeep, and he does deliver. So maybe just a difference in role that needs to be looked at. But I do think Bumrah's there, but maybe he's just not the 1-2 first over strike bowler that he once was. And yeah, you're not going to get wickets. I'm sorry, from, as you mentioned, ex Chennai Deepak Chahar or ex Border Gavaskar Trophy Shardul Thakur.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? What makes Bumrah so effective is when batters are forced to go after him because they can't just play him out and just go after the rest of the bowling attack. But such is Mumbai's bowling attack that you can actually do that. You can actually play somewhat conservative against Bumrah, maybe get a boundary here and there extra, and just go all guns blazing against all the other bowlers because there's not a lot of threat there.
Exactly. And my thoughts exactly. And then, if we do glance at Mumbai's at Punjab's batting today, Shreyas Iyer, third consecutive 50 this IPL. Truly, truly a real captain's knock. I think last pod you mentioned a real distinct factor of Shreyas Iyer's batting is the pace of his innings. We saw him this match as well. He got a few early boundaries, but then he kind of settled the ship there in the middle. And that's what you really needed. That partnership really took the game away from them.
Amongst all the batters that I've seen so far, Shreyas Iyer seems to be one of the only ones that can bat in every single gear. Every match situation that you can put out there, he has the game and the batting for it. You need him to score quick runs, he can bat like Tim David. You need him to shepherd an innings, he can bat like Indian team.
Yeah, he is in the form of his life, and it's great to see that. I think he deserves to be in this form of his life as well. We saw him obviously not get the BCCI contract one year. Obviously, we saw some of the stuff that happened online or, rumors about the Gautam Gambhir not liking him, getting rid of KKR getting rid of him after he won them the chip. Really interesting stuff happening there, but hey, it's good to see that at least Punjab treats him well, and hey, he's performing for them. But I think one concern or one thing I did think about, obviously Punjab, obviously being the only undefeated IPL teams thus far, it does seem like their middle to lower middle order hasn't gotten exposed yet. Obviously, encompassing players like Marcus Stoinis, Shashank Singh, Marcos Jansen, Xavier Barley could hit a boundary or two here and there. Do you think there's been underexposed, and do you think this actually they need to actually get some experience batting? Because you would hate to see them get exposed or them forced to perform, whether it's in the semifinals or the finals.
Yeah, they definitely need some exposure there with the middle and lower middle order. Need some testing just to figure out different match situations and play through them and see if they can handle those situations. I think that's definitely needed. I think that's the only thing really that hasn't been tested yet for Punjab. But every other box seems to be ticked. And I have a feeling, just given the experience of who they have at those spots, Marcus Stoinis, Marco Jansen, Shashank Singh too, he's been a domestic player for a long time. So I feel that they'll be capable enough of handling those situations.
Yeah, no, I think they are in a prime position, and yeah, if they live up to their expectations from the lower middle order perspective, yeah, I think you could definitely see Punjab in the final this year as well.
That brings us to another week of IPL to a close. Week 3 is done and dusted. We get into week 4. Got some exciting games coming up. Any specific game you're looking forward to the most?
Oh man, if you look at, I think this is on Saturday. RCB versus Delhi is going to be a great game. It's in Bengaluru. I think that's going to be a cracker of a match. And then I think Sunrisers and Chennai. I think that's also going to be a great match. That's Sunday, I believe. I think both matches are something I'm going to look forward to. Or sorry, both are on Saturday. Sorry, I'm going
Yeah.
to watch both on Saturday.
Yeah, both are on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Hyderabad bowling attack again because that looks exciting. We talked about how not so good their attack was. See them make a change and the change come to fruition. It's just nice to see, and hopefully those two boys are able to keep moving forward from their performances from their debuts.
And hey, as you mentioned, you get one or two uncapped Indian players playing a little above their potential. Everything seems to click.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be an exciting week coming up, and we look forward to bringing it to you next week. Until then, that stumps.